earlier in this week's live, one of the questions that came up was, how do you come up with creative ideas? How do we do something or show something that's never ever been done before? And I can see how in this day and age, there's a premium on originality. There's a premium on doing something new because it's exciting. It's something that no one's ever seen before. Sort of like when Aftershoot came out and sort of like when Imagine AI came out. What? So you're telling me now I don't have to waste half a day culling through images? What, I don't have to stare at my computer for 2-3 days now to edit my photos? Where do I sign up? Count me in. So these guys who created these platforms created something that had never been done before. And I'll talk about these platforms in a different video because having an efficient workflow is business related. Now, I'm sure that photographers for decades have been dreaming of an automated solution to these pain points, culling and editing, for as long as our profession has been around. For a long time, at least for much of my career, that solution has always been to delegate that work to another human being. Now, you can delegate that work to a robot and they can do that work for 20% of the cost and get it back to you 90% faster. And I'm surprised that the brainiacs over there at Adobe didn't figure this out sooner. But what's this got to do with creativity? Now, I've only met the developers of both of these platforms in passing. I don't know all the nitty-gritty details that went into creating that software. But what I will tell you is this. As someone who tinkers with coding every now and then, I can guarantee you that they didn't get it right on the first try. They probably didn't get it right on the second try either. In fact, I am willing to bet that they probably lost count of how many mistakes they've made over the course of their project's development. But they kept going until they got it right, or at the very least, ready for market. Because I'm also willing to bet that they're going to continue improving that software over time. Because guess what? In their eyes, their product is never going to be perfect. It's going to be pretty damn good, but it's never going to be perfect. Because if it were, they would stop improving it. But look at it this way. That's good news for the end user like us, because that means the software will only get better and better over time. So what these guys did right was that they correctly identified a problem and they threw everything that they had at it, using all the experience that they accumulated over the years, and they created a solution for a correctly identified problem. As photographers, we perform the same process when we're creating photos for our clients, composing our images, posing our couples, using our lights in new and interesting ways. The common denominator here between us and these software developers is that we understand the clients are looking for a very specific solution, right? We understand their problems, and we also understand the problems that we're facing in that work environment. For us, it's stuff like bad weather, uncooperative subjects, shitty lighting, and all we're trying to do is figure out creative solutions to address those problems. And we do that by throwing everything that we have and the kitchen sink at it. And as you get more and more experience over the years, you learn how to conserve your brain power, and you know what to throw at it and you know what not to throw at it, because you know what works and you know what doesn't work. And believe it or not, many of those creative solutions come from experience. There's no easy way around that. And some of them happen by accident, so in these instances, we simply try to reverse engineer those happy little accidents, so that way we can kind of sort of repeat it for the next time we find ourselves in that same situation. And that, my friends, is why personal work is so important. That's why doing a high volume of work, especially at the beginning of your career, is so important. There's a saying out there in the world of photography that goes something along the lines of, your first 10,000 photos are going to be your shittiest. That's probably not verbatim, of course, but I'm sure I'm pretty close. You guys can go ahead and look it up. The more mistakes that you make, the more experience that you'll have, and the more tools that you'll have at your disposal that will help you create something incredible. Sort of like your spice cabinet, right? You start everything off with some basic salt and pepper, which is not bad, right? But then you learn how to use some garlic. Then maybe you'll learn how to use some onions and maybe a little bit of paprika, right? Now you have more things that you can do with your food. You figure out what's going to work well together, and you figure out what's going to taste absolutely disgusting if you ever try to put those things together again. And all that comes with experience and making a shit ton of mistakes. This is true on the cooking side of things, and this is true on the shooting side of things too. This is also true on the marketing side of things. So how do we use creativity with our marketing? That's probably a big question that we all have hanging over our heads, right? Believe it or not, that formula I described just a few seconds ago and also on this past Monday's Live does not change. It's the same process. You've got to go out there and correctly identify the right problem. And honestly, I think that's where most folks struggle. It's that they're trying to solve the wrong problems. If they want to get creative with their sales and marketing solutions, they first need to correctly identify the right problems and then throw everything they've got at it. All right, everything in the kitchen sink. And the more experience you have, the more stuff you can throw at it. And in order for you to have all that experience, you've got to make a whole lot of mistakes first. That's just the long and short of it. So let's talk about your spice cabinet of marketing tools, right? So the first thing that you've got to do is figure out what kind of problems that you're dealing with. Do you have a traffic problem, or do you have a conversion problem? In other words, are you having trouble finding clients, or do you have a problem getting them to buy once you have them in front of you? Most of the folks that I talk to have a traffic problem, so let's go with that, okay? So if you have a traffic problem, you have to figure out, well, is it my product? Is it my brand? Is it my messaging, or is it my market itself? Am I chasing after the wrong people? Because the thing is, you can have the most delicious beef burger in the world, and you can also be the most charming salesperson in the world, but it's useless if you're trying to sell your burger to a room full of vegetarians. So what you need to do first is figure out what your problem is, right? For most people, it's a combination of their product and their market. They're either marketing to the wrong audience, or their product is not a unique solution to that target market's problem. And when your target audience determines that they're comparing apples to apples, they're always going to go with the cheapest option every single time. And unless you are indeed the cheapest option in your market, you're always going to lose that fight every single time. But if you're 100% certain that you've got a unique product and you've definitely got your target market dialed in, like those nice folks at Aftershoot and Imagine AI, now you've got to get creative. How do you get more traffic when you're 100% sure that you've got the right product and the right market? This is the part where you can get a little creative. This is my favorite part. Right? So to do this part right, you simply have to figure out how to connect with your target market in a meaningful way. Even though you've got your target market dialed in, you still got to understand that the customer profile for each of those individual buyers in that market is going to be a little different. We all know that every single one of those buyers need your solution, but they're all going to have different requirements or different triggers before they'll willingly hand over their credit cards. So let's say you're a salesperson or a marketing person for your business. Here's where the fun part begins, right? So you got to ask yourself, what kind of pain points, which one of these triggers can I expose that will get them to stop in their tracks? So I'll give you a couple examples, right? So maybe they don't believe that your solution will work for them. Maybe they don't believe a word that you're saying. Maybe they believe that they can get something similar for cheaper, or maybe they believe that you're overselling your solution and you're hyping up an empty promise. Maybe they're worried about all the fine print that you have with your product. Maybe they don't believe that it's worth all this trouble and money. Maybe they're afraid of buyer's remorse, where they'll regret giving you money in the first place. Or maybe there's no proof that you can actually deliver what it is that you're promising. So just think about all those questions first, right? And then once you have them, then you throw every response you can think of at those questions. And don't even overthink it, right? Just do it. Think of 20 reasons why you believe your solution will work for your target client. Think of 20 reasons why your target client should believe a word that you're saying in the first place. Think of 20 reasons why your target client should believe that you're worth it. Include all your ideas, even the shitty ones. And what you'll find in the end is that you'll now have a gold mine of content, which you can now repurpose into ad copy, ad creative, and captions and copywriting that you can now use on your blog, on your social media accounts, and even during your consultations and presentations. You can also just test this content and see what works, see what sticks, and keep whatever works, and then you can recalibrate or throw away anything else that doesn't. But the goal here is to get into the mindset of just brainstorming and coming up with a bunch of shitty ideas and seeing which ones work. And then test those ideas. And then once you're done testing, you go out there and test some more. And for each of those problems that you think that your target market is suffering from, test your 3 best ideas for each of those problems. And if you've done your homework properly, you would have covered any and all potential objections that your potential buyer might have from moving forward with you, your products or your services. So if you wish to get a little bit more creative with your marketing strategy, here are a few things that you'll need to do. The first thing is you'll need to correctly identify the problem that your target market is trying to solve. Many folks trip up here because they're trying to solve the wrong problems. You might tell your target audience that you've been shooting for 20 years in order to reassure them that you're an experienced shooter and that you know what you're doing. That's nice and all, but maybe they don't care about that. Maybe they just want to know how you're going to make their arms look skinny in the photographs. In this example, you just offered up the wrong solution to the wrong problem. Maybe you'll tell them that you're fun and easy to work with, but guess what? So is everyone else. But let's say that you tell them how awesome you are, right? But maybe what they really want to know is how awesome you're going to make them feel. Maybe they want to know how awesome you're going to make them look. By telling them that you're funny, easy, and accommodating and awesome, again, this is all nice and all, but you're offering the wrong solution to the wrong problem. The second thing that you need to do after correctly identifying the problem is that you'll need to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what triggers will get your prospects to move forward with your solution. Once your prospect is problem aware, they're going to want to solve that problem as quickly as possible. In an ideal scenario, we hope that they'll bring you on board to solve that problem for them. So that's what you got to do next. In your off time, when you're not actually sitting in front of a potential customer, brainstorm what those triggers might be. Figure out what kind of responses you can keep in your back pocket so that way you can use them at your disposal should that opportunity arise again. So if the prospect knows that they have a problem and they like your solution, but they're not sure if it's the right solution for them, you can now show maybe testimonials, or maybe you can differentiate yourself from your peers by showing them your unique selling proposition, which is a real term that we use in the world of selling and marketing. What you want to do is throw a couple of those responses at those triggers, and the hope here is that you'll hit your mark and you'll be able to get them to buy. Last but not least, you'll have to just trust in the creative process. You're gonna have a lot of shitty ideas before you actually land on a good one. That's just the nature of what we do as creatives. Whether you're a cook, a writer, an artist, a photographer, a videographer, a florist, or even an engineer or a computer programmer, at the end of the day, we are all problem solvers. And the only way that we can get better at problem solving is to actually solve problems, as many of them as possible. And then figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work, make those mistakes so we know not to do them again. And that's how we get better at what we do. There are some folks out there like my wife who were born with that creative gene, right? They just come up with things like magic and it looks so easy. Other folks like myself, and I imagine some of you guys who are also watching this as well, we weren't so lucky to be born with that creative gene, which means we really have to work really hard to be creative. So my tip for you is to try a whole bunch of new things, right? Screw up a whole lot. The secret to appearing creative to either your friends, your colleagues, or your customers is to not let them know what's going on behind the curtains. They don't need to know how the sausage is made, so to speak. Like I said earlier in this week's Facebook Live, the secret to creativity is not letting others know your sources. Keep that magic alive and keep that creative process behind closed doors and let your audience enjoy the magic that you've created for them. And on that note, that just about wraps up this week's video on how to be creative in your marketing. I hope that in today's video, you guys learned a little bit more about how to manage your creative process so that way you're able to serve your target audience in new and creative ways. The key thing to all of this is that you simply just have to go out there, make a ton of mistakes, and just get back in there and just do it again, over and over and over again. The more mistakes that you make, the more creative tools you'll have at your disposal for the next round. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and invite your friends to the party. If you guys would like to learn more about how to attract your dream clients, set your business on autopilot, and book like crazy, please go ahead and visit my website at benlau.com/education, where you can learn more about my sales and marketing course and coaching program. As always, thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next one.